But I remember when I got mugged on Christmas Eve one day walking to work in the early hours of the morning, quite a few years ago. And my bag was over my shoulder, and the guy tussled with me, and we had this little tussle in the street till eventually I sort of had the common sense to just, you know, duck my head and let him take the bag, because he wasn't giving up. And off he ran, and it was Christmas Eve, and I had all the Christmas money in my bag. And in those days I used to carry around photographs of my father and, you know, my early childhood and all sorts of things in my bag that I didn't want to lose. And he ran off, and I was really upset and crying up the street and all of that, and the police came, and then there's a guy in work that I really didn't like, and he was always the first one in, so he was there when I got there, and he was a right grumpy old thing. And I think I was about 19, and he called the police, and, you know, he sorted everything out and made me a cup of tea, and didn't quite know what to do with me, but he, you know, sort of was very kind. And later on that day, he came down with an envelope, and he'd gone around the whole firm and done a collection for me to replace my Christmas money. And I was so grateful in that moment, so filled with gratitude, because I didn't think that I didn't think that would happen. I didn't think that I had many friends there. And I was so filled with gratitude. And he said, you know, I hope they catch the, you know, bees that did this to you. And I was so grateful in the moment. And I don't forget, I knew nothing about this. And I said, well, it's Christmas. They must have needed it. A bit like the birds that needed the kale. You know, I thought, well, you probably wouldn't do that unless you felt like you needed to for some, you know, whether it is for your family or for drugs or for whatever. You wouldn't do that unless you felt like you needed to. It's not an easy way to make a living, is it? Of course, he was quite horrified at that thought, but it always stayed with me, that whole, people only do what makes sense to them, what they feel they have to in that moment. And when Alfie talked about spoiled good, that's what reminded me, because whatever that man did that for, it came from either wanting to feel better for himself or wanting food for his family, or whatever it came from, you know, came from there. And it's a spoiled good rather than a bad thing. Not that there is good and bad, but for the example. Hey, Paris.
Hi, yeah, no, Jacqueline, that was when I joined in at the moment where you talk about getting mugged. This is where I joined in. It definitely very touching, and the way you've explained, like just the level of thinking before this understanding even came is amazing. Definitely.
What I realise now is that hurt people, and when people feel better, they just do better automatically. And I think that I must have had some of that knowledge then. I just hadn't uncovered it. And I'm not saying that the behaviour is acceptable, but the person underneath that, there was a reason for that. There was a reason that they did that made sense to them. And it wasn't to hurt me. You know, that wouldn't have been the reason. Let me go and hurt somebody. There'll be a reason, a sound reason underneath it that seemed as though that was the best option, which of course we know it isn't now.